want a big picture of everything, it's time to transition down to the smaller details. Our next speaker is standing here behind me, the Boxwood guide, Lynn Batdorf. As landscapes have evolved through time, the boxwood shrub has been a staple in landscapes. For thousands of years, the boxwood have been prominently featured in both public and in private gardens. But accurate and detailed information to care for and diagnose its ailments remains a bit elusive and vague. Lynn has dedicated his career to becoming a boxwood authority, which includes sharing his knowledge and experience with others. After graduating with a degree in horticulture from the University of Maryland, Mr. Batdorf was curator of the National Boxwood Collection at the U.S. National Arboretum for 36 years. He also served as the International Cultivar Registration Authority for Buxus for 37 years. He is the author of 3 books and dozens of technical boxwood articles. He lectures nationally and internationally to professional audiences on a wide variety of boxwood topics. In addition, he consults with both homeowners and professionals to help them learn how to best care for their boxwood. Just an aside too, he has a little setup in the corner here with some samples of his books that he's written and some of his business cards if you'd like to get a little bit more information from him before you leave today. Let's welcome the Boxwood guy, Lynn Batdorf.
I've spent a lot of time working on one plant. If this one plant could talk to you, these things that you would want to say to you, and that plant is, wait a minute, I got it. It's Boxwood. So I know you're a very astute group, and some of you may have noticed you forgot the S. Now I've heard this word several times today. I've been keeping track. There is no such word in the English language as boxwoods. It's on the internet, it's in publications, that word is erroneous and does not exist. The word boxwood is both singular and plural. It is in fact correct grammar to say, I have 300 boxwood. Okay? So you now know more than almost anyone else about boxwood. Isn't this easy? So boxwood's been around for a long time. It's been written about in the Bible. It's been cultivated for thousands of years. And Europeans were some of the first ones to cultivate it. European small countries the size of states here in the United States, so they tend to shear things. And so that kind of still continues today, the shearing of box. That was a public garden. This is a private garden now west of London. Box. And the architect, probably one of the most famous places, Michelin tire guys, have bought. You can see the people on the top right corner give you a little bit of scale for how large it is. And actually, that's not even a hundredth of the whole place. This is totally amazing. Private residences, not too far from this is the first domestic one, I think. So this is in St. Mary's City, about 2 hours from here. And that's actually English boxwood, Buxus temperance fruit. And in the English way of things, they don't say boxwood, they say box. So in the dry English humor of things, they take a box, in the shape of a box, and they put it in a box. So there you are. So you have to understand the English humor of things, but that's what's going on in that one. This is outside of Mexico City, the rest can speak for themselves. On the left is a boxwood bonsai, Buxus microphylla sinica. It's 217 years old, the National Bonsai Collection in the National Arboretum in Washington City. Woman taking a bath and some other things that often being sheared in different ways with this topiary, which is 3 beyond just the normal shearing. This is a real cool one outside of Mexico City. Mimic stone heads, if you're familiar with those. And so they're actually life-size replicas of the mimic stone heads in a whole hedgerow outside of Mexico City using Buxus sempervirens. This is really kind of cool. The secret to boxwood, and almost no one knows this, 101 years ago, Samuel Record at the Yale University School of Forestry published his monograph called, unfortunately, Boxwood. The point, which I want you to remember, is this number. This is why boxwood can live for hundreds of years. I've worked with boxwood 417 years old, still doing well, a lot better than I would at that age. And so this is actually twice as hard, twice as dense as oak. People think it's a hard wood. It's a fallacy compared to boxwood. Most of the time, boxwood will sink in water. There's 78 woods that have that claim. They are denser and will sink in water. Boxwood is one of 78 woods that can do that. No other plants will. They float all day long. Because it's such a hard-wooded plant, that's why it can live for such a long time. The top right corner, it was just about 7 years ago in custody, they were uncovering their pit, and they found 37 boxwood sticks and a couple elm, and they were the first ones that were used as tools. You can see the burn marks on the very top right corner, and they actually took the boxwood branches and they were shaping them to use them in agricultural digging and furrowing those strips. So the use of boxwood goes back 171,000 years ago. They understood, hey, this is a really cool hard wood. Let's do something with it because it's going to have more utility, but it'll last longer than if I use oak or some other soft wood. There are several disjunct populations in England. Boxhill, south of London is one. This is Chiltern Hills, which is northwest of London. It's a natural forest of boxwood. These trunks are bigger, almost as big around my waist. I just say they're big around my leg, but I'm a 36 waist, and these trunks are almost that. They're just under 300 years old. To be in a forest of boxwood is just really a cool thing. And I've been in Azerbaijan, Republic of Georgia, it's all over the world, and to see natural forests of boxwood as it's really, really cool when you get into forest. Back in the day, 1880s primarily, Buxus malarica and Buxus sempervirens were harvested from the Black Sea, the east side of Republic of Georgia. And so these are the trunks of those trees that were harvested, and they were on their way to primarily England, also France. They were using power looms and all kinds of things because they then understood on an industrial scale harvesting the wood to make things made out of boxwood wood. Why boxwood wood? All kinds of things, measuring instruments, all kinds of things. Why boxwood? Because the wood is so hard and dense, you have very, very minimal expansion or contraction of wood based on temperature and moisture fluctuations. You always got a more precise measurement using boxwood than any other wood. So that was always the wood of choice, and that's why it was used so much. And that's why forests of boxwood don't exist today. And so life goes on, and I really want to spend just a little bit of time with this in the carving. So because the wood is so hard and dense, the detailing and carving you get of is really, really exceptional. And if you have someone who knows what they're doing, the things they can do with it is really extraordinary. My favorite one here is the 16th century knife handle, which is really, really incredible relief. And then the Madonna on the left is really kind of cool too. But this, the boxwood wood has been used for a long time. So this is currently being renovated. I think they're almost done now. The Bath Apollo in Versailles. And so the question begs is, this is a pool, you see part of it here, and there's a whole boxwood hedge that goes around it. It's just about 100 yards. And the question begs, well, why use boxwood? Why not use ilex? Why not use ligustrum? I mean, there's a bunch of things you could use. Why was boxwood specifically chosen for the Bath Apollo? Well, it goes back to 13th century Eastern Europe, Dark Ages. And so you had these towns and villages, and the thing was just trying to stay alive. And so people would sometimes get sick or would die without an injury. And so what happened then is the town elder was responsible for the tribe, and they would say, like, why did this person get sick? Why did this person die? And so they agreed, all the educated minds got together and agreed what had to be evil spirits, because you weren't in a fight with the next tribe for the best bottom land, this kind of thing. And so every plant had to serve a function, because it needed food, fiber, building materials, clothes, absolutely everything came from plants. And so it had to serve a function. You didn't dare to have the luxury of planting something just because it looked good or you liked it. It was never a consideration. It had to serve a function. And the function of boxwood was that it deterred evil spirits. How do they determine this? Well, very, very advanced scientific tools. They had a bucket of water and started throwing the different woods in there, examining it, and saw boxwood sank like a rock. Special, mystical, magical properties. This boxwood separates itself from all its peers. It sank like a rock. Of course, all educated minds, the evil spirits, these lazy things anyway, they're not going to take the time and trouble pouring a hard wood, a boxwood wood. They're going to go with softer woods, fir, spruce, pine, oak. So boxwood had a medicinal use. It had a use as a medicinal plant, and that was its function. And that's why it was planted around the houses to protect infiltration of evil spirits into the house. That's why you put boxes by the front door. As soon as your family came in the house, everyone always has an evil spirit on their back, kind of weighing them down. Of course, the business of the day. As you approach the front door, there's the boxwood, casting spirits off the back of yourself, and everyone goes in the house and has a really good time. That's why boxwood is used as a foundation plant. That's why boxwood was planted around the house. And that's why there's sometimes boxwood gardens near the house. So no one ever knew that, but that's the reason why. So if anyone has that, I can make you a certificate suitable for framing. See, this property is free of evil spirits. And so even Mr. Churchill, you know, love or not, but here he is right there. And what's on top of his grave? Boxwood, of course. And why boxwood? Well, eternal rest, he deserves it. And why should he be bothered with evil spirits for the rest of the time? And so the one on the right first, this is in Georgia. And so this is the modern 18th century church. And there's the 13th century church, which was used for a long time. And what do they both share? Boxwood, of course. Boxwood is always an entrance for the church. And on the left, that's Burgh Castle in Fishley County in central southern Ireland, and Guinness Book of World Records, the tallest boxwood hedge, often the word being hedge. And so the deal is, and the sign which they have there, is you see they're sheared, I forget the exact measurement, I think it was about 25 or 30 feet. And so the sign says, these boxwood are so tall, we don't have equipment that can shear all the way up. Imagine that. As they stop, and that sounds really impressive to people that don't know. Of course, you can shear much higher, but that kind of makes a good story. And so, Guinness Book of World Record, they can't shear higher than 25 feet. I think most of you probably know that deer cannot eat boxwood. There's 37 alkaloids in boxwood. They've all been studied very, very well. Buxine and cyclobuxine actually are toxic to people and to animals. And do a pound and a half of the leaves of the young wood that's distilled the green wood. A pound and a half of that will kill a full-grown cow. And so what's interesting is you get anything on the internet. So I got this a couple of years ago from a Canadian pharmaceutical company. It makes no claims, but it says you should take 3 capsules a day. Not being a very intelligent person, I went to a chemist friend and said, here it is. And he calculated it would take a person 14 to 17 days to die respiratory failure from taking 3 boxwood pills per day as this goes on. Because again, the leaves and the young wood has buxine and cyclobuxine, which are toxic. Animals know this, they won't eat it. Apparently humans aren't as intelligent. There are 1,527 different boxwood. I know them all. I know them better than my 4 children, I think. And so there's 3 disjunct populations, pretty much disjunct populations, of the 3 species of the species. Indonesia, Europe, and the Antilles. And so if you look at the equator, there's 117 species of boxwood. And of those 117, almost all of them are tropical. There's only 6 temperate species of boxwood. As a group, the boxwood family, the boxwood genus, is a tropical genus. So Larica, Microphylla, Sempervirens, Willigiana, Seneca, those kind of things, those are where your temperate species come from. But that's only the tip of the iceberg. The vast majority, is over 100, that are fully tropical. So of course, what do people want? Cold hardiness. So here's a group of plants which is basically a tropical plant. I want cold hardiness. And so, once you understand where they naturally grow, you kind of get that. They grow in calcareous soils. They like a well-drained soil. And so they like shade a lot too. They're an understory shrub. They don't like full sun. Where the boxwood right here, this is the nectarine northwest Greece. And so this is the boxwood nectar growing right there. And so what do people do? They plant it in full sunlight. They plant it with a soil pH of 5.5 because they think it looks good next to the azaleas and rhododendrons and ericaceous plants because they're acid lovers. And then they wonder why the boxwood don't grow well. So the boxwood's an angiosperm. It does flower. So you see the flowers and the fruit capsules. You can talk about the fragrance or the odor of boxwood, and everyone has an opinion about the foliage. Whether they either love it or they don't, so it's either a fragrance or an odor. What most people miss, though, is the flower smells. The female and male flowers both have a very, very sweet cinnamon smell. Really, really neat. Depending upon the species, comes out late February to early April. And I think everyone would agree that's a very, very neat, sweet cinnamon smell. And so really, really cool fragrance there, which most people miss because they're relatively small flowers. They're not grown for the flowers. Growing boxwood starts from the ground up. What most people, so this is a 6 foot by 6 foot Boxwood Sapphires Fruticose English boxwood at the National Arboretum. It was dug in the fall of the year. I wrote a contract to have it dug in the fall of the year because that's the best time to dig it in the fall of the year and put it on the other side of the road. Now the specifications for American Nursery Association specifications for broadleaf evergreen shrub of that size. And so I had a hand dig to make sure that it was that size. They put it on the other side of the road. And they came back a week later, they put it back in the same exact hole. Tax dollars at work. And so what happened in that whole week while I was sitting on the other side of the road is I went to work because it was my job to calculate what was the root loss. And so it's kind of hard to see, but the roots, there's a soil surface right there. Roots go down that far, which was 8.5 inches on that boxwood. I found no root below 10.5 inches, and that was a very marginal thing. I found roots 11 feet beyond the center of that plant. I calculated, and I took several trenches up. Boxwood lost 81% of the entire roots being dug by professional accepted specifications for broadleaf evergreen shrub. And when they put it back in under my care 3 years later, it died. Even I couldn't keep it alive. And so you have to understand, boxwood roots don't go down, they grow out. I have a dramatic example of that. I had a shop take a backhoe, just pull up some boxwood. These are boxes somewhere I was in Dallas. They were 17 feet tall. They were 12 feet across. And I just had them literally just pulled up out of the ground. No plow pan. And so you can see the roots there. Again, the roots go down about 6 inches. They don't go down further. And they went out way beyond the plant. You would have seen more, but of course, in the act of using the crane, it tore a lot of the roots. So the question begs is, why are the roots that way? Boxwood roots have a high soil air requirement. That's why they go close to soil surface. As you go down the soil profile, you get less air and more of the other stuff. And so that's why they don't grow down. That's why they grow out. And they'll grow out yards beyond the drip line on large established plants. This is leaf liner. And see, boxwood has 3 years of foliage. You never have more foliage. That's why it has 3 years of foliage. It keeps that. And then what happens is then in the spring of the 4th year, new foliage starts, and the interior foliage turns yellow. And people, I get a lot of phone calls in April and May and say, my boxwood's dying, the leaves are turning yellow, or the leaves turning yellow. It's turning yellow on the inside. Well, it's because those leaves are now 4 years old, and they're naturally upsizing. So what's happening on this boxwood is it's lost all of its 2nd year leaves. That's all you really see. This is actually a Boxwood Sempervirens Belly. And so a little closer inspection, it's actually leaf liner. Boxwood's pretty susceptible to leaf liner. The handout that I gave you, leaf miner and blight and the moth are the 3 biggest problems with boxwood. And I gave you some more information. I don't have time to talk about it today, but I think that really will help you spend a lot of time with that. And so it usually, this is more than enough. It takes about 4 or 5 in culmage to cause premature excision of the leaf through the mesophyll cells become dysfunctional, and then just this falls off. And it's actually, the Boxwood leaf miner is not a leaf miner, it's actually a gall midge. So when the female oviposits in the spring, on the underside of the leaf, the midge stays in the same place, and the adult comes out in the same hole. You can see the pupa casings from the adult leaf miner right there, it's really kind of cool. So not really a leaf miner. Poly leaf miner is a true leaf miner. Boxwood leaf miner is not, it's a gall midge. Another insect is psyllid, and so what you generally see is the circular foliage right there. So it destroys the apical meristem, and it's a piercing, sucking mouth part, sucks out all the leaf-filled cells in the back and causes it to kind of up and curl. And so there's some frass from the sword premium right there. There's 17 different scales. Most of them are hard scale. There's 1 or 2 soft scales. In the southern states, the Gulf states, you're getting 2 generations a year of the soft scales. Around this neck of the woods, we're still getting 1 generation. Hard scales, pretty much always 1 generation. And you're going to see those on the inside of the stem. They're going to be inside of the 4th, 5th, 6th year wood. You're not going to see on the 1st, 2nd year wood on more of the outside of the stroke. Really dramatic example of boxwood mite right there. And so the leaf becomes so dysfunctional, it is prematurely of sizes. I'm telling you, predatory mites are worth their weight in gold and are really, really good. It's incredible what they do. It's voracious eaters. And so if you have boxwood in a really sunny site, where it's, the western exposure, use predatory mites the spring of the year, and they will just, I've used it on hundreds of different types of boxwood. And it's just incredible how well it works. No spraying, no chemicals, just biological. It's the best of, they're reasonably the best. If you haven't met it, you soon will. The box tree moth was found in southwest Germany in 2007. It's an aging pest. And then in less than 18 months, it hit the British Isles. And so it doesn't fly very far, but it's with trucks and other kinds of transportation and hitchhikers. And so that's why it covered the whole East Coast, the whole Western Europe in less than 2 years. And so the adults can have this kind of leaf pattern or this kind of leaf pattern. This bottom one is more common, but you'll see those. The adults, 2 generations a year. And of course, this is the larvae right here, creates the webbing. So it covered the Western Europe in less than 2 years, from 2007 to 2008, and our Canadian friends found it, and I'll talk about that in a second. So what it does is it defoliates in this incredible what it'll eat, and this, in no time at all, this eats all the foliage. What they typically do, which is very, very common, is they'll take a top leaf and a bottom leaf and they'll sandwich them together, and they'll use that to hide and protect themselves. It's still to hide themselves there, because you won't see them. You'll see a little bit of the silk right there. You may not necessarily see them, but the leaves are just really close together. That's very atypical. The boxwood won't do that, but they're protecting themselves there. And of course, there's a whole bunch of spiders. Grass spider here, that's what a grass spider. There's all kinds of spiders that create webbings. This is not the moth. This is not the box tree moth. But I get all kinds of calls, especially in the fall of the year when the spiders are making their webs. And they go, I've got box tree moth. No, you don't. You have something else. Box tree moth can't do this. Will never do this. What it does do is this. And so when the first reports came out of Europe, Germany, when we first became aware of it, of course, it was entomologists who were doing other work with it, and mostly sempervirens, of course. And they're going, well, it eats the foliage of the plant and it eats the bark. And I go, really? And I said, yeah, it eats the bark. Well, it doesn't eat the bark. So what's happening? There's 2 larvae here. This is from when I was in Lockport, New York. Was an entomologist, and so you can see the canyon layers there. There's the wood. The larvae are stripping the bark to get at the canyon tissue. Now that's food. The wood they can't do anything about. So they're not really eating the bark. They're separating the bark to get at the canyon tissue because all the foliage is gone. So that's a tube, but then that's what we're really doing. So of course that will really kill the plant. And what's interesting is you'll go from a green plant to this in 14, 20 days. Can be quicker. It's really, really fast. This map is the most current one, June, almost 3 years now. And so it shows 7 states. Officially, it's in just these 7 states. I can't say anything more, but use your imagination. There's 48 continental states, and it might be somewhere near you. And so it looks like I'm saying, Lockport, New York, right up here, and it came up, for the states. It came across, and our Canadian friends have been very, very good at sharing information. so that's why New York and these New England states, and this is because of nursery distributions that found those states. But again, not rewarded new nursery distribution, and so this is the most currently accepted map, but you know, work with me. What's really been, so most people are unaware of the box tree moth, which is kind of a good thing. It's actually easier to take care of than it has been for Slimicladium, Coenecra, which I'll talk about. But the box tree moth is a very, very simple life cycle. And Gregory Simmons, USDA scientist in Pasadena, California, created this thing called sexual disruptors. And so he has this huge 3 milligram lure. And so, you know, when it's mating time, the female's waiting on the box, we're just waiting for a good time, and the moth is kind of flying around trying to sense the female. And so this 3 milligram lure is so large, it gets hung up in the air, and the moth can't find a female because the male thinks the female's right there, but can't find her, so what you get is failure to mate. And so actually, we've done it in trial fields, and we had 4 acres in Southern California, where we introduced the box tree moth, then did the sexual disbar lures, and it worked. And so we did it this year in Lockport, which is in an established population. The results aren't finished yet, but very, very promising. It should collapse the population. So for those few that do make it through, BT Kyrgyzstan's would really do the job, so that will eliminate the problem, at least in the short term, because, you know, it's like, what can I do today is always a knee-jerk reaction. So the sexual disruptors plus the BT variety K, definitely going to do it. And then breeding, we're actually working on it. So I found Green Mountain, which is a hybrid boxwood, is totally oblivious to feeding the box tree moth. However, a Japanese boxwood, winter gem, physically immediately next to it, totally defoliated. So all we're trying to do is isolate the sequence of what it is in Green Mountain that the box tree moths don't like, and just put that into a breeding program. The problem with that is that's a 30-year, 40-year investment in time, and so that's a longer solution where you won't have to do sexual disruptors, you won't have to do BT variety K, but you know, that's, so we're working on kind of both at the same time with a lot of appropriations trying to get additional funding for that. And again, most people aren't aware that this is even a problem, but it'll soon, because people know that it's around. So our friends in North Canada share a nursery, the largest boxwood nursery in Canada. What's really cool is they have shade cloth, which is not unusual, but what's cool about this shade cloth is the holes are certain size and certain shape. So the adult moth can't fly into the hoop house. Isn't that cool? And so they create it. So, because again, boxwood doesn't like to grow in full sun, so it solves 2 problems at one time. It gives it 35% shade, and also keeps the adult moths from flying into an area where the box tree moth is around. Really kind of cool. Boxwood can turn red. It's known for being a green plant, but can also turn red. And so reasons for that include macrophylla. Macrophylla is an important fungi. Very, very common on the English boxwood, Buctus sembraris fructuosa. Being an imperfect fungi likes dark, moist, stagnant air. That's what you have in thick, sheared boxwood. And so being an imperfect fungi, so you see the spores right there, which are visible any time of the year on the upper and lower leaf surface. They're visible with naked eye. You don't need to have lens if they're there. And you'll hear it's actually on this plant, but it's not sporulating because the temperature's wrong, but there it is. And so that species and Volatella is another imperfect fungi. They both behave the same way, so I'm going to talk about both together. Both like dark, moist, stagnant air environments inside a boxwood. The boxwood leaf is very, very thick, very waxy, very hydrophobic. And so when you have a mist, or rain, or whatever, long after everything's dried out, inside that boxwood, it's still dry. I call it the basketball syndrome, because that foliage is acting like a basketball, keeping it wet and moist and dark on the inside. Macrophylla Volatella, being an imperfect fungi, love that. And so it starts out as a stem leaf fungus. Go on and check, it goes to a stem fungus, and then in less than a week, in several days, one whole branch turns brown. And people go, oh, this branch wasn't brown yesterday, I'll prune it out, and that'll solve the problem. And then they come back the next day as they bring the groceries in, and there's another branch, they cut that off. 2 weeks later, half the plant's gone, they're looking at themselves, how did this happen? Well, because they just sort of looked at the brown branches instead of worrying about what was green. They were focused on what was colored. I'll come back more on that. Colonectra, which was called Citricladium, was discovered by Beatrice Honeycutt, a good friend of mine. She's now retired RHS pathologist. And when she discovered it in 1997, I flew out and spent a week with her, 3 days in lab and 3 days in the field, which was really, really fun. And so what you're going to see on Colonectra is you'll see the stain on the young, this is first year wood, right there is just about 6 millimeters long, or you'll see what I call frog's eyes. Those are the first two signs you'll see if you have Colonectra. What's interesting is it causes defoliation. It doesn't kill the plant, it causes defoliation. The roots are still alive. The roots are always alive, but eventually what happens is all the foliage comes off, there grows new foliage, and so that gets the Colonectra, and the plant dies of exhaustion. It doesn't die from the disease itself, it dies from exhaustion. It's not systemic, it doesn't kill the roots. And so, if you're not careful, you can go from this to this in 1 year. Woodville Presidential Library, I've been there several times, and so it's that devastating, it's that incredible, and they're almost in the same place. And so, of course, what they're doing here is they're scrapping them to keep the spores from migrating, moving around, just isolating the plant, sanitary situation, and just moving them off the site. You don't want this to happen to your boxwood. So it started, again, pretty much East Coast, like Oregon. Oregon is the most agriculture-rich state in the United States, and lots of rainfall. Colonectra, macrophylla voluatella love that, and so that's why Oregon was an early state. And of course, that spread pretty much anywhere boxwood's cultivated today. So if you have boxwood, Colonectra is going to be around. And so, what does a person do? And so, please write this down. This website, I didn't put it in my handout. Please write this down. It's free. There's no strings. There's no smoke and mirrors. It's done by Oregon University. It says no signing and that kind of stuff. It's brilliant. It's amazing, and you want this. And so you can put it anywhere in the United States. You can zoom in. You can zoom out, and it tells you what the current threat for getting box blight is today. So regardless, I just kind of picked the Washington, Baltimore area, but wherever you are, it's a brilliant thing, and it's just really amazing, and it's great people do that, and you really want that. So, like, should you be looking out for it? Should you be concerned about it? We'll give it a definitive answer with using their map. There are cultivars that are highly susceptible, and there's some cultivars that are highly resistant to blight. And so this is a really, really small list. There might be 24 names, I don't know, but we've done studies with 147 different boxwood taxa. And so this, the only thing I want to show you here is that some are highly susceptible. English boxwood, one of my favorite. Also, just some very, very tolerant ones. And so green, golden green, Hollandite, green boxwood, green, which I showed you earlier on the blight. And so there's a lot of different tolerances there, and so what nurserymen are doing is they're actually breeding with some of these, and their list is a lot larger, and I'll have a few in your handout of those boxes that are more resistant. The spore starts, it's on the ground, it can live 6-7 years without a host. And so what happens is when it rains, the rain comes down and hits the spore, and that ricochet action causes it to bounce up onto the plant. That's how you get initial infection 92% of the time. What's the other 8%? The other 8% is spray hoses, mower wheels, gardeners, boots, those kind of physical things where it transports it from one site to another site. I've been involved with court cases where House A had boxwood blight, and they mowed it, blowed it, and mow, blow, and go. Went to another house, did not have it, and they got it from the first house, and it was because of the contractor going from multiple sites without cleaning equipment. It's really ugly because you say, yes you did, no you didn't. And so, but it's a 2-cell linear spore covered in crazy glue. It lives 6 years without a host. It will move, on its own. Again, mowers of wheels of mowers and just all kinds of things have been vectors, boots. With another court case where a nurseman had put boxwood into a common carrier sideboard with plywood sides and delivered the boxwood, went somewhere else and delivered the boxwood. The first boxwood was contaminated just by being in the truck. Going along the side of the truck was more enough to leave the spores. It goes and then delivered. They go to another place, load boxwood, which was free, goes along the same spores and it became infected, and so lost the whole crop. And so really, it doesn't seem correct for this. So what happens is, because it can live so long without a host, it's just laying on the ground waiting to get picked up by a mower blower or that raindrop, and it goes, and so usually it affects the lowest part of the plant first. This is real symptomatic here too. And so you have the dark staining here, which I kind of showed you earlier, the young plant. And so it's really hard to catch it halfway through because it goes from totally green to totally dead in less than a week or so. And so it's really hard to kind of catch one kind of in mid-flight kind of thing, but it's really fast. But Dr. Shen Hong, Hampton Roads, showed very conclusively to do two things. One is you mulch underneath the boxwood. You mulch out beyond the drip line. You also have no foliage to the bottom 4 or 5 inches of the ground. So when the rain hits the ground, the mulch causes the raindrop to disperse, not ricochet up onto the plant. And if it does, it's not going to go up to 4 or 5 inches to what this is, which is English boxwood, which is the most susceptible boxwood to box blight. And it's been able to keep alive just fine. Why? Not because of chemical control, but because of physical control. And isn't that the best kind of control anyway? I've read some of those contracts that people have for spraying boxwood for box blight, and they going to use all this stuff and charge us a large amount of money. Then the fine print says you don't guarantee results. Of course, you can't guarantee results. The leaves are so dense and hydrophobic, you can't get an even spray of the spray material inside the plant because of the physical nature of the plant. And of course, then the foliage is still wet on the inside, so it occurs a secondary fixation. So of course, you're not going to control the chemicals. Don't even try. Don't even waste your money with that. Physical control will work be far more effective than any kind of chemical control I've ever seen. Nematodes is a bunch of nematodes, viral, root knot, lesion, and other nematodes, about 24, 27 species. And so what the meadow does is it eats the boxwood roots, and so it causes it to branch out, and so eventually it has nothing except the primary root. And so you can't tell what the difference with this is. The trunk of the plant right there is cut off, and so with Macrophoma gliatellus lyndercladium, it's a branch here, branch there kind of thing. If it's nematodes, it's going to be uniformly discolored all at one time, and so that will tell you from the get-go is that. I can talk about that. Shearing a boxwood. People love to shear big boxwood. And so you can shear if you want. And it actually makes sense to the homeowner because you drive in there with your truck of people and you shear the boxwood. And at the end of the day, the boxwood looks a lot different. You said, it looks great, tastes great, when I write you a check, no problem. And so everyone's happy. However, if you do that long enough, what happens is, and this is left to right from not so bad to worse. And so when you're shearing boxwood, you're cutting leaves in half, you're fractionalizing leaves, halves, quarters, and thirds. What you're really doing is you're creating a very, very dense plant, unnaturally dense. And so again, the density of foliage causes Macrophoma gliatellus lyndercladium, and this encourages natural death too, because these leaves don't have the light that can go down in there, so it's only the parts of the first year leaves, the second, third year leaves, remember it's 3 years foliage, can't get light. And so if that goes on for a while, you get what I call the wishbone effect, where the center is starting to die out just a little bit. Kind of see it there. It's green on the outsides. Why? Because that's where the light is. And it's starting to die on the inside because the competition is so severe, it can't get light, so the plant recognizes, I'm not going to grow a leaf in the center, I'm going to grow on the outside because I'll get a better return on my investment because the sunlight's there. And so still, if you do nothing, eventually the Macrophoma gliatellus go full blown, and you wonder how did you get there? Well, how you got there again was the beginning of the story where you had the crew come in and just do the shearing and nothing. So it's a little bit of education, fractionalized leaves. it's education to, these are not sheared, but the principle applies. And so to educate the client that they need to be, boxwood need to be thinned if they're going to be sheared. So, because when you shear a boxwood, you have the branches, you go along there and cut them, and you create what I call the candelabra effect comes, and then it multiplies. And so what you have to do is correct that, and so by thinning the boxwood, you're kind of going in there and cutting out one whole little section, and the branches can kind of spread out, and it's supposed to be really, really tight, being a perfect breeding ground for the different seasons. And so this is an English boxwood, the National Arboretum, 7 foot tall and wide, and that pile is knee high, and so I went in there with my Feltman hand pruners, use Feltman hand pruners, use bypass pruners. Bypass pruners can be a very, very clean cut. Again, the boxwood is very, very hard and dense, so you can't break them. The euphemism is they're cloud pruning by doing this. But imagine a reciprocal cut that's on the boxwood, a very, very large, coarse wound like this. You know how much carbon it takes to compartmentalize that wound? You let alone encourage wood-boring insects? Are you kidding? And so, no, use pruners. And so that, then, so you keep thinning the boxwood. What you're doing is you're going about 6-7 inches into the plant, as far as the foliage is primarily going to go. And you keep doing that until you can focus your eye and you can see the first, second, and third year foliage, and occasionally you can see the branches inside. That then is the proper density of the foliage that it would have if it wasn't being sheared. But that also allows air and sunlight to circulate through the center of the plant, denying the environment conducive to growth of the macrophyllum biota. And by the way, we're getting some sunlight in there too. You also have foliage all the way to the base. You should have foliage to the base always. If you don't, it's a light distribution problem, sunlight distribution problem. Usually involved with canopy because of various factors I'm going to talk about. So, pop quiz: would you rather have the boxwood on the left or the boxwood on the right? Well, of course, the one on the right is what you want. So it becomes three-dimensional, and so it still has foliage all the way through, but it's not two-dimensional like the one on the left. And so, but it allows the air and light to go through the plant. Homeowners never knows the difference, but it's really fun to educate them and say, by the way, you know, look at this, it has personality and character, as opposed to, yeah, let my biases show. I don't like a geometric ball or a geometric triangle all the time. It's loses all sense of personality. People have nice personalities. I believe plants have nice personalities too, and let the personality of the plant show it up a little bit. Not mentioning the names. I found this one time, what I call a landscaper disease, and so these are some really, really tall English boxwood underneath the tulip trees, and so in the fall, the year the leaves fall down into boxwood. And so being good landscapers, they will remove the leaves, and that's fine. And so these boxwood are so tall, they can actually stand, and do stand, inside the fall year while they're blowing the leaves through. And so the homeowner said, you know, we've got these brown patches, and they were this high every 6 feet. Brightest green, brightest red, it's really uniform. And I you know, I'm not seeing lesions, I'm not seeing spores, I'm not seeing anything, I'm not seeing anything. Like, you know, it's got to be antibiotic. What is this? And so eventually figured out, so the men were standing inside with the back blower exhaust blowing on the back. And that caused enough to kill the foliage. Isn't that cool? Now, actually, I found a third example. I will mention these at University of Virginia in Charlottesville, and they had an event going on, and for some reason they had a lift, they had a generator on the lift for whatever they were doing. The exhaust went to the boxwood. And so, same type thing, except your big diesel exhaust 12 feet up. And so that was really impressive. And so it's really kind of interesting what you can find on boxwood sometimes. So sometimes, you know, some of these avonic things require a little bit of. I'm here to stand up for the rights of boxwood. Boxwood is a very passive, very wonderful plant, and can't always defend itself. And I think that's a very serious problem. I'm really upset about that. Using the top right one first. And so people would look at that and go, yeah, look at that. You know, we had a fall, this is the fall of the year, that one top right. Had an early frost, so it's a typical frost. It's the first one of the season. They go, well, geez Louise, your box is not the right plant because it killed all the foliage. Well, there's nothing wrong with the plant. The problem is they were shearing this plant, and so they sheared off too much, which people do, and call it the second flushing foliage, call it third flushing foliage. All temperate plants all temperate plants go through 3 distinct phases to require winter hardiness each year. If it doesn't have the correct time to do that, it's not winter hardy, and in fall, the year will come along, it will get burned and die. So this plant produced late foliage because of shearing, and so when it lost too many leaves to recognize that, second flush growth, when it grew leaves, it was then unprotected from the frost. It's the blame of the plant, not the plant's fault. Another one here, outdoor season, that's in the fall. This is spring. Leaves come out in spring year like they're supposed to. The problem is, if some fertilizer is good, more is better. Why bother doing the soil test? We'll just teach Scott some business and just go applying more fertilizer, and everything will be good. And so the foliage came out too soon, and so because the foliage came out too soon, it was a frost, and it was killed because of over-fertilization. And you start to see the regular foliage coming out after that. Again, bad boxwood, because look at that, all the leaves are killed by the early spring frost. It wasn't early spring frost, it was a normal spring frost. It was the fertilization, and it was a problem. And so, again, they're blaming the plant, not the boxwood's fault, and it can't say, no, it wasn't my fault. And of course, winter hardiness, which I talked about a little bit at the beginning, is important for the plant itself, but then also it's the roots. The roots stay very, very close to soil surface. They're put in temperature and moisture fluctuations, which conspire to wound and kill the boxwood roots. They don't have that depth there. And that's why 1/2 inch of mulch, not 1 inch, not 2 inches, not 3 inches of mulch, 1/2 of 1 inch of mulch goes a long way to moderating the temperature and moisture extremes. Why not 2 inches? Why not 1 inch? Because it disturbs the air-water relationship value in the soil, and so the roots kind of suffocate that way. Too much mulch is too much of a problem. The roots suffocate very slowly over a period of 5 or 10 years. And if you stay in that site that long, or if the staff doesn't change that long, they'll be able to make that connection. But it's a very insidious the way the boxwood looks from lack of air because of over mulching the plant. And so what happens then too is then the roots need to be protected, and so when they're in containers, they're really exposed, and so it's not unusual to have the roots being wounded or dying, from that situation. And actually, ought to be considered as a temporary plant. Different kinds of water damage, again, more abiotic things. And this one's really cool because boxwood, going back to Samuel Record, University, the wood of boxwood is 45% calcium oxide. It's an alkali-loving plant. It needs a soil pH between 6.8 and 7.5. If you remember nothing else from my talk today, remember 6.8 to 7.5. If you're going to grow boxwood, they must have that soil pH because they're alkali-loving plant because they're almost half calcium. And so it's really important. So you start getting things that it's not magnesium or other deficiencies, it's the pH is wrong. It's not as deficient nutrients. And that's what's so really important, please. Different herbicide damage. This one's cool because this also looks like urine, so it's sometimes hard to separate some of the other abiotic symptoms. I suppose it looks good to have really straight lines, here, and also the brick edging there. But I tell you, this does nothing for the boxwood. You know how many boxwood roots you're wounding and killing by doing this edging? It's a tremendous amount. I went back to this site about 15 years later. The hedge was gone because they had killed the roots. I didn't go back to this one later, but I've been told from friends this isn't very well either because the roots can't grow this way, they can't grow this way, and so they're really stuck because there's just too much there. A friend of mine from, you can talk about this friend of mine from Ukraine gave me this about 10 years ago. She's still alive, she's still doing well, and so this is actually out of her backyard, and just ice or snow on boxwood, do nothing. Do nothing. People try to do things that's really odd. What people do not do any of these, and so it's really unfair. Please don't do any of those. And just different things. This is really cool because I didn't believe it until I saw it. Birds can hear the all midge of the boxwood leaf miner, and I go, bullshit. But it's true, and they can. And so what they do is, the other side leaves, they peck the lower leaf away and eat the gall midge. So they very effectively remove the gall of the midge, but I guess they kind of hurt the leaf too. And then sapsuckers are really kind of intelligent birds because what they do is they just kind of rid of the bark of boxwood, fly away, the cambium tissues start flowing, and it causes different kinds of insects to come. It comes back in about 10 days or so and feasts on all the insects that are attracted by this literally bleeding boxwood. Abiotic things. There's 1,522 different boxwood. My timekeeper says I have time to talk about each one of those. This is Boxwood Currator, which has the largest leaf of any temperate boxwood. Really cool. Buxus harlandii from China. Really cool plant. And it has one cultivar, which is called Richard, which is really cool. Very marginate tip. Microphylla. Another microphylla. Great leaf collector. Really small. You guys know what gimp is? You know, like when I was a kid playing with gimp, and so like we twist gimp, that's what the leaf is like. Introduced in 2006, the Japanese boxwood, unraveled. It's a really kind of a cool, nice draping box. The introductions the last 20 years have been considerably smaller box. The winter gem, which I talked about earlier. Everyone knows Carl Linnaeus in 1753 wrote the species book. However, what doesn't get the recognition is Clifford was the one that funded him to do his work. And so this is the original specimen from Clifford's herbarium that Carl Linnaeus used to describe Buxus sempervirens in 1753. How cool is that? And there just has to be one Buxus sempervirens. That's at the University of Virginia in Charlottesville. Lots of variegated boxwood. Here's one. Here's more. No smoke smears, no pruning, no shearing. Grand Blandy, don't buy that one. This is the one you want. If it's grown as a single stem plant, the nursery industry does multi-stem plants. That's wrong. It's a single stem plant. Lynn Batdorf told you so. It's a single stem, D-rung, no pruning, no shearing has ever touched this plant all by itself. It's a great plant. Buy this, not D-rung, not Grand Blandy. There is such a thing as a ground cover boxwood. Isn't that cool? Rosemary folia. Doesn't it look like rosemary? And English. Radar Valley, the most cold-hardy of any of the sempervirens. I've read about this in literature for decades, but never heard about a boxwood with exfoliating bark. I thought, you're kidding me. It's true. We found this when we were in the Republic of Georgia, and there is such a thing as this. And so we rediscovered it in 2002 when we were there. We spent a month there and discovered it in southern Republic of Georgia. Really cool. Ornamentally, not that cool because it's usually hidden by the foliage, but botanically, it's like, I still salivate for this is really cool. The most cold hardy of all is the Korean boxwood, Cinicorius laris. Cinicorius laris, any cultivar is going to be the most cold hardy, sometimes zone 4, certainly 5, 6, and 7. And John Baldwin, a hybrid boxwood. But the one I want to talk about is SB108. I do cultivar names, and so I don't know if it's Freedom or Independence or New Gen or whatever it is. I'm cultivar. So the cultivar name is a very exciting SB108. And so it is more resistant to colonectar, however, very susceptible to mites. People won't talk about that. So in life, if you want something, you have to give up something. So what you're getting is you're getting resistance to box blight, but what you're getting is susceptibility to mites. So buyer beware. Yep. And so because there's lots of boxwood around, there's lots of it planted, and so it's just, in nursery production, in the fields, in containers, where B&B, it's just everywhere. Because it's really an incredible plant. It can be used in all different kinds of ways. My wife is a violinist, National Symphony Orchestra, and so this is actually the tailpiece from her Granary, which is from 1710, I think, as a boxwood tailpiece, as the 1/7 uses the one double flute that used in music. And so that's on her tailpiece. And because there's all kinds of people in the world, just like there's all kinds of plants in the world, each plant is wonderful. Each person's wonderful. They all have their own things, and that's all really well and fine. And if anything I said has convinced you the Boxwood's really, really good, it's on the money. It's on the back of the 5, it's on the back of the 20. And so if anyone still carries currency, you tell me any other plant that can make that declaration that's I have that much prominence, it's on the back of the 5 and the back of the 20. So there's got to be something going on with Boxwood, right? I mean, thank you very much.
Explain a little bit more.
The question.
I typically smack my boxwoods with a broom to keep snow off.
The question was about snow and ice, and so everything I say is a lie because it's so contracted from what it really needs to be. So I'll stay forever as long as someone asks me a question. There are things you can and should do, especially if you have Boxwood as a foundation plant work. It's one thing because every 20 years we get a 1-foot snowstorm. The problem is it comes over like 36 hours. That's fine if the snow slowly comes over a long period of time, but when it slides off the roof at 20 miles an hour and plops on your box, that's a problem. So you need to wrap the Boxwood, wrap the foundation plant counterclockwise if you're right-handed, counterclockwise if you're left-handed. I'm only joking. But with about 5 pounds of full pressure, and you're wrapping the plant about 3 or 4 or 5 times, and that keeps the branches together so they don't splay apart when the hits it. The boxwood wood is already hard and dense. The cold temperature makes it even more brittle. It's brittle naturally because wood spike can snap at any day of the week. And so, if we're all educated, so you know if there's snow on boxwood, you sweep up. And that's fine, but when you have the snow coming, the snow slowly lowers the branch, that's fine. But when you remove the snow using a broom and sweeping up, it comes up really quick. Well, what I'm alluding to is that crotch angle right there, let's say it has 10 vessel elements in there, it wounds or breaks 5 of those 10, and so the plant can still survive, that branch can still survive through spring, but in the summer when the photoevaporation rate is high as it's going to be, the branch dies in the middle of summer because of winter injury because you remove the snow. Ice, you can't do anything, and so it's do nothing if it's already happened. The only preventative thing is not those lattice things I showed you, but it's a little bit of string of wire, not wire, excuse me, really a thin rope, very, very coarse string, pulling with about 2 to 5 pounds of pressure, and just wrapping it a couple times with that. Once it's on there, let it go, do nothing, honest. Even if it's not along foundation, you should use the string, but if it's out in the yard. At the Arboretum, 182 different types of boxwood. Being a good federal employee, a long time ago, when I first got there, it snowed, and so 180 different kinds, 700 plants total. So I went out there and just froze to death, getting all the snow off. And it's a place, 2 months later, was littered with branches that I had wounded and broken off. And of course, then that summer too. And so, being a better federal employee when it snowed, I just drank my coffee, read the paper, had my feet up on a chair, and just watched it snow, and life is good, write a memo, and call it a day. And then the damage was almost nothing. I won't say I eliminated it, but I severely mitigated it, and do nothing, please. And it's a very, very hard-wooded plant. Cold makes it even more brittle, and so even a positive thing of sweeping up and can create problems in that crotch angle right there and wound and break a lot of the vessel elements. So please don't.
So those canopies that were over, would that be something that you could put on there to avoid any snow falling off?
The question was those plyboard things where it actually was touching the box. I'm sure they were made for when the plants are smaller. That was in Connecticut where that one was taken. And so as the plants get bigger, they don't bother making bigger canopies, which is why the foliage was kind of coming into it. And so you could argue, like any plant, the first year or two, any plant, they're more sensitive to the cold, and you can talk about doing that, but after that, don't. Because again, any boxwood is going to grow in zone 5 and 6 and 7, and so we're talking about that. So it's actually the snow load. Again, I guarantee you, it was snow before people invented these cockamamie reasons to try to do things like that and survive handsomely, and don't do it now. I would be proud to live in some of the barns that people have built to hold the lattice in Connecticut. They put this lattice in it. Guys, if you just take care of the box properly, do the thing, and do the correct fertilization. I didn't begin to talk about fertilization, and other things. And so it's please don't. Thank you very much.